So one of the things that I'm always coming across is these really long prompts. And I found that there's a tool within Midjourney that I always use. And I don't know if a lot of people use this, so I want to go over it. But I thought maybe let's try somebody else's prompt. I got this randomly from one of the Midjourney Discord channels. And I'm giving credit to someone because of the fact that I don't want to use somebody else's prompt and not give them credit. So the person's name is actually Brandon Montrone. I hope I pronounced that properly. And I don't know them. They're just a random person that's actually on the Discord for Midjourney. And this is his prompt. So I'm going to use this. This is a fairly large, very long, complicated prompt. And a lot of times when I see these things, and even when early on when I used to do this, I just realized that there was way too many words and probably stuff that was unnecessary. And Midjourney came out with this new tool a few months back. I've used it quite often when I come across any prompts that I'm writing out that are this long, or even testing out other people's prompts just to learn. Because by the way to learn how to create proper prompts in Midjourney is to see other people's prompts. I mean, it just makes sense. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. But for now, let's focus on this one. So I'm not going to go and read through it. I've left it up on the screen enough for you actually to read it and see what it's about. I have no idea what it's going to give us, but we're going to try this one out. So I'm going to copy it and I'm going to go ahead and run this. So we're going to run it first as it is. So I'll say imagine, oops. I guess I should type properly. Imagine. And this is the prompt. Now you'd notice it's a really long one. So we're going to run it and see what he gets based on this. And this is very random. In fact, I think that if I were to run this again, you will see that it's completely different, because in my head, I can picture the image that was the result of this a little bit. I can see it, and I know it was nothing like these. So I'm going to run this a second time just so you can see it, but this is the result of what all of this gave. Now, we could go through this line by line and see if any of it matches what's here, but we're not looking to dissect it. We're looking to shorten it and still get a good image. So I'm going to run it one more time to see how different we get and what we actually get. Okay, so let's see. So we had these originally, ran the prompt a second time, and we ended up with this here. There is really no correlation between the two. If you notice, there might be some similarities in this upper right-hand corner versus the one in this lower left-hand corner. But for the most part, it's kind of not really following any idea or pattern. I don't think it is. I'm going to run it a third time. Now, I'm going to point out something else after I run this a third time here. But let me focus on one area that you guys probably don't know about. Some of you do, is this chaos here. --C or --chaos is used. If you increase that number, it changes the possibility of each one of these four results will be very different. They'll vary a little bit more. So the higher the chaos number, the more possibility that you're going to get different instances in this result, because of the fact that chaos separates that. Now, if you don't add any chaos, you'll get four more similar results. And so that's something to keep in mind. That's why these results are so different here. The number that you usually try to keep is anywhere between 7 and 14 if you're looking for a little bit of variation. If you go any higher than that, you're really going to look at some extreme stuff that's going to be completely different, not even following what you're looking for. Now, the other thing I want to point out too is the --S is style, and this is set to 50. Now, by default, if you don't use the style, the default is always 100. So if you go under 100, that means it's going to be more accurate to what you're actually prompting it to do than allowing it to stylize it its own way. I like to see what Midjourney can do a lot of times, so I tend to use a higher stylization. So I'll add like either 150 or 200. The most I will ever add is 250, because beyond that, it just gets, again, a little bit crazier, has nothing to do with what you prompted. And so it's kind of adds a little bit flair to it. If you want it to be closer to what you're prompting and not let it stylize, then you go below 100, in this case 50 or 25 or something along that lines. But when you're dealing with a prompt that's this long, that really doesn't take too much consideration. It's really picking anything out there. So here's the third one. So I want to show you the three, and we'll do the first one. This was the first one. Remember, same exact prompt. We ran it again. This is the second prompt. And now we're going to do the third one. And this is the third. There's not a lot of similarities. There are some, but they're all very different because of this crazy prompt. So what do? Well, that's where Midjourney comes in with shorten. Is a command that you can put in, and you put in this prompt exactly the way it is, and you press enter. So what Midjourney does is it looks at this prompt and it says what really is needed and what is not based on the importance of the tokens. I'm not going to get into what tokens are, but it has to do with the algorithm and what it looks at, what it puts weight into, and so forth. Now it gives us some example shortened prompts, but before we do that, I'm going to look at the details of how it came up with this. So based on reading this entire prompt, it added the most weight to this actual person. I believe this is an artist. I cannot say that last name, so I'm not going to try to butcher it. And so that's really the main focus or the biggest weight in this whole thing. Then you'll notice that the other ones that it's using, again, it's a cave containing skulls and weapons. Then it's taking another, I believe this is Joseph. Yeah, that should be another artist that they put in there. Then it's using the word ancient and tornadoes and portal and starship and so forth. Now, is this accurate to the fact that, is this really the way it's weighted in the picture based on how they wrote it? Probably not. This is the way Midjourney interprets it and says, hey, this is what I see as most important in this prompt. I think if we ran this again, it probably will give us something different, and we can do that. And I'm going to leave this one up for now, but you'll notice that it took out a lot of things that had nothing to do with supposedly what it needs, but it's going to change the image all the way around. Because look at some of the things it took away. Beautiful half body shot of a gorgeous model wearing latex bodysuit. So it definitely took that away. So we're no longer going to get these bodysuit images of this woman, even though not a lot of them have bodysuits. Maybe this one does, and this one, and maybe this one does, maybe that, I don't know, but you don't really see it. So that really isn't working very well. We'll also look at things like this other artist that they put in here. They also put in modern fashion, cinematic, mysterious mood. All of these things have been taken out. Now, if those things are important to you, then you really should be doing them, adding them one by one as you're creating a new Midjourney prompt. Doing it this way is just throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, and hoping you get something good. Now I'm going to run one of these, if not all of them. But before we do that, let's test my theory that if we run this shorten again, will we get a different result? And no, look at that. It's actually the same result. Now it will give us different prompts, but it gives us the same result as to what it's actually considering has more weight in this prompt. So now that we have that, let's run a couple of these. Let's try the one with the most, and then we'll try the one with the least. So the first one has, I believe, a lot of the content, but it doesn't have the woman in it. So you'll notice that you're getting a completely different image. Now, you're not getting a woman. Maybe this guy did want a woman in, because if I go back to his prompts, you notice that, let's see, stormy weather of lightning. They wanted the background and they wanted all of this, but what they're not getting is what they put down at the bottom or towards the end is they added, where is it here? The beautiful half body shot of a gorgeous woman. So I'm going to see if I can grab that from our prompt. I'm going to add it. So here's the background. And so what I would probably do is, let's see if we could do this one again. And I'm going to add beautiful. They're using a specific artist, so I'm going to use that artist. Ancient cave containing skulls. So I would probably put this first, and then I would put with a background of, okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to separate this with a comma because I like to keep my subjects. So beautiful half body shot of a gorgeous model. I don't know if I need the word beautiful, so I'm going to say half body shot of a gorgeous model. I'm going to say wearing the latex bodysuits, separate thing. And I'm going to say maybe in the style of instead, which is probably a lot more words than I need to use, but okay. And then I'm going to write with a background of so forth. And that's the prompt that it was using. Let's see what it actually does. So now what we're doing is we're giving it the main subject of the actual model, which is, I believe, what this guy was trying to do with a background. So I'm just flipping this around. And why I'm doing this is because shorten does give you a way of shortening this out, but it will take away some things that you might think is important. And you're like, okay, well, if it's taking it out, where do I need to add it in? And in this case, I use this lower one here. So here we go. So now we have the background. Let's go to the background first. We made this background originally. We went ahead and added the woman in a certain style. Now, I don't know that style of that artist, so I don't know if this is accurate to them, but I have to say this disclaimer really quickly. I don't believe in using other artists' name in the actual image itself. Some people do. I personally don't like to. There are very few times that I do that, and it may be if I'm trying to get a theme of, but I don't like to make a character, especially if it's the main subject. I don't want the main subject to be in the style of someone else, because that to me is like I'm actually purposely doing something that somebody else can create or has created. You know, everyone's different. That's just my personal preference. We're not going to get into the legalities of it or whether there is any, because I know this is a conversation that is ongoing. But for me, I personally don't like to do it. So I don't even know if this is that person's style. I'm just doing the prompt that I was using as an example. But this is the way I would have done it, because now I've got that background and I've got that image. Is it exactly what I want? Probably not, because there's one other thing that this person used. He's putting in a specific version, even though the default version right now is 5.2. He's also putting in the chaos of 11, like I said, and the stylization of 50. So I'm just running this again to see what we get. We should probably get something very similar. The aspect ratio is just going to be a little bit different. There we go. So now this is it closer to what he was doing? Probably. Probably would have to add some more to it, but this is now at least closer to the style he's doing. Now, one of the things that is not on here that I notice is he used Frank Frazetta as one of his styles to include. Now, that is not included in this one. So what if I change this? And by the way, notice that I started this with a crazy big prompt that somebody had, and then I put it through shorten, and now I'm adding to it or removing from it. This is why you do this, because now it's like you can learn how it's changing. So let's change this here. It's not giving me anything to do with Starship. So with a background of cave containing skulls and weapons, take off Starship, take off these guys, and let's do in the style of Frank. Is it Frank? I think it is Frank. Yeah, Frank. Is it Franzetta? I believe it is. One of my friends is a big fan of this guy. So now we'll do that. So we've changed the style of it. And again, this is only for this example. I don't like to do this, but we're just doing this for just learning here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this now. I've taken off those other two artists that I have no idea. I've taken off the word Starship. Okay, here we go. So if you are familiar with Frank Frazetta, you know that his backgrounds have a lot of like fiery kind of reddish stuff, with the skulls drawn a certain way, the shadows and stuff. So this is definitely following that type of art. So that is working a little bit more. Now we know that what we're prompting is actually coming through. There are some things that we could change to tweak a little bit more. Is she wearing a latex bodysuit? She is. Is the bodysuit being overtaken by other things in the prompt? They are. Like you can tell there's skeletons on it. So you may want to add, we're not going to do it in this case, but you may want to change that. There are things along the lines here, like it's containing caves containing skulls and weapons. I don't see any weapons in the background. So that's something that's probably not even being looked at. But honestly, between you and I would suggest if you're just starting out with Midjourney, or you're early on and still trying to understand prompts, start with short prompts and start adding to it. Now I'm going to grab one of these images here because I want to show you one last thing. So let's pick one of them. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and save this. Save image. Okay. Now I'm going to show you one other step that I like to do. Let's say, for example, you found this image and you wanted to create something similar. And we've done this before, but I like to use this in here. Let's say you shorten your prompt, you created something else, you like it, but you're not 100% sure if this is the end result you want. And the way I like to do that is then I use what's called describe. The describe is really nice because you get to take something that you created and you can have it described. Now, describe is really good for those of you that do your own art by hand. Take a picture of it, throw it in here, and it will describe what you actually created, and it will give it its own version. So I'm going to drop this one in here, and I'm going to go ahead and have it describe it. So here we go. It's now given me 4 prompts that are all different based on describing this. So I'll go ahead and run all of them so we can see what it actually gave us. What's great about this is that this will push your prompt to something completely different that you didn't even think about. And again, this is a learning experience because you can then look at each prompt and be like, okay, what is this one? Why is this one different than this or than what I made? And you can see what works for you and what doesn't. So here we go. We have 4 prompts that are completely different. Remember the one we started out with, right? I'll keep it over on the side so we can keep it as a reference. This is what we were describing. So here's the first one. So not close, different. It did describe. There's skulls in the background. There's some kind of a model in there. She's not wearing a bodysuit. It didn't give us what we're looking for. Now, if you wanted to go further with this one because you like the style, but you'd rather her be in a bodysuit, then you change it. Change it by remixing it. And instead of black dress, say bodysuit, black bodysuit, and it will give you that. And we might do that in a moment. Let's look at the next one. So here's the next one. Definitely nowhere even close to what we were trying to do. That is really not even close. Now, from a color perspective, these colors are really nice together, especially this one on the lower right-hand corner. But was it what we were trying for? Absolutely not. This would probably be something that I would use in another advertisement for something if that's what I was creating. Here's the next one. I have no idea what it used here in the beginning, other than saying Black Witch in dark red, in a style of skull motifs, bold, pop art inspiring, and there's a lot of mess ups here in the actual language. Uniformly staged images, hellish background, very similar to the other one, and it has Tintoretto as probably a style. Is this at all similar to what we're doing? No. Does it give us options and ideas for other things? Yes. But I think that this prompt is a little bit messed up, so I would not trust this one. Let's go to the next one and the final one. This is probably the one that's like out on left field because it does not fit at all. There are some similarities, which I will point out, which is the bodysuit that has actual print on it. It did give us a bodysuit. It did give us a bodysuit with prints. It did give us some skulls in the background on some, not all, maybe even one. But it's a completely different style and look. So, completely left field. But maybe it prompts you into ideas. So the whole reason why we do this is to go beyond an image that we have, whether it's one that we create through prompts, or if it's one that we draw, or one that we find online and say, I want to create something similar, but not exactly this. As you can tell, it's never going to give you exactly what you gave it. It's just going to give you something similar and something you can then venture off into. Now, I don't want to go any further with this unless I change this one. Let me just try this last thing here. This is probably a little bit further than I want to go, but model wearing black bodysuit, hellish background. Let's do fiery, hellish background. Figurative colorist. I don't know what that is, but we'll leave that. Human anatomy, uniformly staged image, shot on 70mm with dark, white, and red. Okay, we'll leave that alone. So all we're doing is changing the bodysuit so it's not a dress, and added like a couple of words. We'll see this. This will be the last thing we do. Again, this was our image that we resulted with from what we started out with. And what we started out with was completely different. But I think walking through the shorten, the describe, and taking a huge prompt and making it into something smaller and then moving it around does give you ultimately a different image altogether, and maybe something that you didn't even think about, that it's like, this, I like this better. I think this is more in line with where I want to go with this later. So here it is. I got to say, I'm going to grab one of these so that we can use this as an example. These are actually not bad. And it's a great change from going from this here to this here, which is a lot more similar to what we were looking for. So let's see. I'm going to grab, which one should I grab? This one or this one? I think I'll go with the left, right. They're all, there's three of them that are good. Let's go with this one. Let's grab that one. And I'm going to show you one last thing. I believe there was something else. Yes, I'll show you one last thing so we can see these changes here. Okay. So let's go ahead and save this. Save image. Let's go ahead and save this one. Okay. I'll show you one last thing before we move on. But can I bring these up? Okay. Just to give you the comparison of what we started out with. So this is what we're showing here. And just so you guys get an idea, I wanted to give you the end result. So when we started off with this prompt, which looks like this, we got something along the lines of this first one, which really, if you really read through this prompt, there really is not a lot happening here that's coming from this prompt. We have no idea. I mean, there might be some things, but it doesn't make any sense. So we use the actual shorten command or shorten prompt that we have in Midjourney, and eventually came up with something along this lines. I'm not going to show you the prompt because it really doesn't matter. We've kind of tweaked it a little bit, but we shortened it out using the shorten command, and then kind of started tweaking it a little bit to fit what we were looking for based on what we saw the heaviest things were, which was, for example, things along the lines of portal to the underworld, a cave containing skulls, things along that line. And the other big part that I saw here was a beautiful half body shot of a gorgeous model wearing a latex bodysuit. Those seem to be two of the main subjects for that big giant prompt. So I wanted to try to keep those. So that's why we incorporated, we ended up with something along this line. And then we also noticed one other thing at the very end of the prompt that this gentleman was using. And it was here, character portrait by Frank Frazetta. Now, if you know Dungeons and Dragons and stuff along that lines, you know he's very popular with that kind of art. So I wanted to keep it in his style. So that's where we ended up with number 3 here. This was the end result of what we ended up with. But then we ran it through Midjourney's describe prompt. So we ran this third image through there, and we ended up getting a couple of different things, but this was one of the end results that we got. So even describing it, it got very close, still different, not the greatest of image, but it did follow the prompt of a girl in a bodysuit, gorgeous looking, with skulls or skeletons in the background, kind of a hellish background, in a style of Frank Frazetta. And it is photorealistic. So this is the journey. This is the journey through Midjourney. I know it sounds stupid, but you came all the way from here to end up with something like this. But I would have stopped at this one. Probably maybe changed it to a black bodysuit instead of a print bodysuit. But that's kind of the journey that we go through. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you all that and to really shorten out the prompts that you get is because you really have no control when you start with a prompt this big. So this was another video that I was doing before. I don't know if I posted this video or not. And I used an example of somebody was creating something that seemed like a good result. But again, they were using a very large prompt. I wish I kept that prompt. I did not. But I took their prompt and I broke it down to basics. And I started that prompt from the very basic idea of what they were doing. I don't want to make this video longer than it already is, But I want you to see this because this is why it's so important to start out with a shorter prompt rather than throwing yourself into this. So here is a beautiful model with pink hair. Simple. Is it an image that you want? No, but it's a start. So you're like, okay, I've got a pink haired model. Perfect. That worked. And she's beautiful. You know, beautiful is in the eye of the beholder. It could vary. Why they consider this beautiful, I don't know. That's a topic of philosophy that we're not going to get into right now. And this is what we end up getting. I believe there might be one more, but this is completely different than what we started out with. And it's because we build the prompt step by step. I believe I have one last one. And this is where I added one more word. The image of the person is in the center. And if you wanted to change that, because you didn't want the person appearing in the center all the time, you use something along the lines of asymmetrical. If I were to show you, just so you see the difference one more time between what we started out with, which was this image here, it's just an image, it's cute. And then we ended up with this image here. That is how you work with prompting, by starting small and expanding on it. And if this was an advertisement that you were trying to do for someone, this is how you would build it, because you would take your time and build it out to exactly what you wanted to add to it. And that's how it turns out. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this answered a lot of your questions. I hope it gave you a little bit more insight into how prompts work. I know this was a little bit longer than expected, but I think there's a lot of good information here that you'll probably get good prompts from. So until next time, I'm out. Peace.